Every single piece of bronze that we got in that shipment has this stuff in it. Give you an idea how thick it is. It's over a 1/16 of an inch thick. And it didn't start separating from the bronze till I was crushing it, and it was kind of delaminating. It is soft, kind of like lead. I'm gonna put the propane burner on it. If it is Babbitt, it ought to melt right off. I peeled a piece off with the chisel, and I don't know what it is. It's heavy. I'm thinking it's Babbitt, but let's see if it'll melt. Yeah, that's Babbitt. Alright, so I took my chisel and I got in there and I peeled that stuff off, and this is it here. And it is Babbitt. Never seen this application before on a bronze bearing. There were no worn train bearings on this car. But anyway, you can look and you can see the finish. They went in and serrated the ID of these prior to putting the coating on. I got to put it in the kiln, and I got to watch the temp, and once I see what the melting point is, record that, and then I've got to put everything in the kiln and melt this crap off. I'm going to go ahead and throw the bronze in the bucket. So I went ahead and run the temperature on up to 550, and I'm going to give it another 20 or 30 minutes, and then I'll start taking them out of the kiln. 550 seems to be about the magic number, or it needed a little more soak time. I don't know. But I think 550 should do the trick. So this is what it looks like under the Babbitt. This serrated or textured surface. And I chiseled this off, and it still left some in these spots. So I'm going to go ahead and stick this back in with the rest of that. Switch it off. I raised the temperature to 600 degrees. Oh yeah. I think that's going to work. Yep, I got most of it off, I think. I got quite a pool of Babbitt in the bottom, or I'm getting there anyway. So before I get attacked in comments on why didn't I just melt it off with a torch to begin with, I've already tried that, and it did not work. What's happening is the thermal mass of the bronze was soaking up all the heat, and it wasn't penetrating the bronze at all. So the only way around that is to go ahead and equalize it by getting everything up to the same temp, and that way the Babbitt will just roll right off of there. It is a kind of a pain, but it saves me a lot in propane from having to avoid that route. Also, this way I'll be able to collect all the Babbitt, or most of it, in this pan and save it for ingots. So in all, there's 300 pounds of this bronze that'll have to be de-Babbitted. Keith Rucker found a good deal on bronze up in Michigan, I believe, and these all came from a locomotive warehouse, and they all have the same bronze Babbitt on the bronze. So it's all going to have to go through this same process, which isn't a problem now that I know what to do. But we're going to separate this into 150-pound batches, one for Keith, one for the Streetcar Museum, and what we don't use at the Streetcar Museum will be crated up and put back in storage for future jobs that may arise. This just come in before we get started with the bearing shells for the Minnesota Streetcar Museum. I wanted to show you this. This is from my buddy James Clow. And if you remember a while back, we did a cast iron riser block that takes the place of the lathe compound on certain models. And this helps with the rigidity of the tooling. Well, there were several people had reached out after we did that, wanting one. So with that said, James has made these available for those customers. Now the original one that we did the collaboration with, it had Windy Hill Foundry on it. He made a change and went ahead and put his logo on it. Right there. We will make these available to you guys. We haven't quite decided the price on it. It'll be under $200, and that's with shipping. But if you want one, let James or myself know, and we can put you on the list. But the reason I'm telling you now about this job, even though we're not doing it yet, is I want to go ahead and fill out how many we're going to have to produce. Kind of that'll give me a heads up on how much to prepare for, and we're not going back and forth to this sporadically. I'd like to knock them all out at one time. So we are going to be ramming up some more of these. I did a video of me casting these. I looked and I reviewed it. I didn't do anything on the molding process. We have to have 3 bearing shells. This is 1/2 of the bearing, and this is for the Minnesota Streetcar Museum. And what you're seeing here is a filler block, and the only time we're going to use this is just for the first mold we're going to make on camera, which is going to be a false drag. The reason for that, we got a lot of coping down to do. Look how much taller this is than my one flask. That's not going to work. That's why I was using 3 stacks high. What I was doing was just taking two flasks and ramming it all together, and then treating that as one solid flask as I ram the other part to keep from having a third parting line. On my first attempt, when I was doing these, I did that. I had 3 parting lines here, one somewhere right here, and then you could definitely tell it. We're gonna avoid that this time. As long as this is not as tall or taller than 2 flasks together. So that's 2.5. So we're going to start off by elevating it on a 2x4. Alright. Now we have about 1 inch from the height, which is fine. That's perfectly fine, because this is going to be upside down in the drag anyway when we're done. We have it elevated to the right height, and the next step is to make a false drag. And you know, I said we're only going to have to use this core once. Well, this is the part where we're going to have to use it. The core is just to help keep the sand from running into the ends, along with keeping this from collapsing and cracking with the down pressure of ramming the sand. It keeps it good, solid, and rigid. We have elevated it 1.5 inches, and that will create a parting line only from the bottom up to the parting line of where the 2 flasks will meet. This is my cope. That's not going to work. So it's going to be upside down. Jim Wilmore, who works with the museum, he's responsible for most of the pattern work that you're seeing here, and he does a great job. This dog bone shaped piece, this will be removed for 3 of these, and it'll stay in the other 3. So you're going to have 3 of these with a window, 3 of these without. The only part we're going to save on this is going to be your upper flask, which will be the false drag. Then we're going to flip it over and dig out sand down to the parting line, as you will see soon. Now this, I want to get pretty tight. Keep wanting to complain about the heat, but after being in that desert, this ain't too bad. Now I'd like to get this as hard as I can. Because it's going to be used a total of 6 times. This is the side we're saving. And coat this side out. Right. About last week's video, I was showing you the Falcon rocket launch of Elon's, and I didn't get all the conversation in the truck, but we were all, our imaginations were running wild as we didn't know what we were looking at. We had no idea there was a launch even happening. So for us to be going down the interstate in that part of California, it was kind of eerie. And I had been, I got to tell you all about this. I was at the last space shuttle launch. I rented my car in Orlando, you know, because that's where I had to fly in to drive to Titusville. It was the same weekend of the races in Daytona. All their cars were gone. He said, "Well, don't worry, we'll fix you up with something." He took my driver's license. He kind of laughed a little bit. And he said, "Oh, you got a commercial license, which I got to have that truck out there because it's got air brakes." He says, "All right." So I followed him out in the parking garage, and sure enough, there's not a single vehicle out there except for this great big 30-passenger church bus. Seriously? And he said, "I don't have any choice. That's the only thing we have." Here I am going to Titusville in a 30-passenger church bus. And you wouldn't believe how much gas that thing drank. When I'd pull back into the hotel, a whole bunch of old people think I'm their ride and they'd come out there. But that wasn't the worst part. No, that was not the worst part. Anyway, I got to see the launch. You know, it's rare that anything ever happens on the days they schedule it because of the weather and any other complications they run into. The day I leave, I decide instead of hitting the main road, I'm going to take the smaller city streets on my way out. Well, here's a bunch of school kids waiting at the street corner for their bus to arrive, and here I come, of course. And I guess my bus looked just like their ride. I'll run up to the door, and it's one of those that fold in, you know, like a big bus. And they're just standing there looking in at me. I get down there about 2 blocks, and you know those little bitty fellas that are keeping up with me? They ran 2 blocks, and these are kindergartners, I guess. I don't know what they were. I'll never forget that. Alright, so this is the last time I'm going to have to use this block because all this will form itself. Now, I'm going to dig down a little bit and give us a little bit of a shoulder here. And I'm going to do the same thing here. Alright. So we have it pretty much where I want it. The only thing this does is cradle the pattern in the right location. I no longer have to have this follow block right here. I'm going to be ramming the inside first. So technically we actually haven't even started yet. This is just to keep a good level plane and help form all the coping. So that'll speed this process up. I want to go ahead and get it to where it'll pull clean from the false drag. The reason for that, I want this to come out of the false drag when I ram the other side and separate it, and I want this to stick in the cope. And you don't want moisture on your patterns. You see where I'm dripping sweat on it? I have been known to wear those wrist warmers around my wrist. You know, those rainbow looking things from the 70s. That helps keep the sweat off of them. But you're wasting your time wearing the leggings. Alright, now that I have coated all this down, that will really speed up making the 6 halves. Once we ram this side, we will flip it over, take the false drag off, and set it to the side. I'm going to flip the entire thing over. And we already pulled the pattern from the false drag, so I know it's going to come out, right? As long as I carefully go straight up with it. And I'm setting the false drag to the side. See how nice and clean that looks? Alright, so now all we got to do is ram the drag. The real drag, not the false drag. So we have the first 3 molds made for the shell mold. And then this one, this is a secret. And we're going to be using a different material for this. With that said, I guess we will do a pour today, but it just won't be on the bearing shells as I wait to see what I got to do to get all that mess off of the bronze. I'm going to be using this yellow brass for this particular pour we're going to do now. That dude's heavy. I have at least one more to cast. What do you think it is, guys? For those who have been asking about the Windy Hill Foundry hats, these are now available on my website, windyhillfoundry.com, under stores, or you can click on the above link. These are on the pricey side, but keep in mind the shipping is included. Have a good day.